Hello, imaginary friends, and welcome to the Imaginaries Literary Podcast. Today's story is a Halloween story written by me. It's called The Witch Next Door. But before we get started, if you could subscribe, like, and share, and possibly comment maybe your favorite scene or your favorite character. That would be amazing. It would help us out a lot. And now, without further ado, The Witch Next Door.
A yellow flash blinded Jordan McDowell, but he didn't blink. He couldn't. Long, cold fingers wrapped around the boy's shoulder. It was a comforting gesture, but it sent shivers down his spine.
"Why don't you come in off the porch, child? I have warm drink and much candy."
The woman's accent was rough, and her breath pungent. Her smile didn't touch her eyes. Everything from Jordan's skin down to his bones screamed danger. But for some reason, his muscles didn't move the way he wanted them to. Instead, he nodded.
"You come in, yes?"
the woman said.
Yes, I'll come in,
Jordan said dreamily. The woman's smile doubled, revealing dagger-like teeth.
Good. Leave your bag behind."
She lowered her eye patch, covering her left eye, and after Jordan dropped his candy bag, she led him through the door. It shut behind them with a small whimper. Theodore laid the map down onto the makeshift table, a mini wooden crate, and unrolled it. His friend's flashlights searched the paper left to right, then right to left. It was cold in the tree fort, and their breaths smudged the light only slightly.
"I've been working on this since my first Halloween,"
Theodore said, smiling at the spotlighted map. Halloween was by far his favorite holiday.
What is that, Theo?
His friend Benny said. Benny wasn't the smartest, but he was a good friend, even in a pinch, always standing up for his shorter friend Theodore.
School's over. I don't want to hear another Halloween story,
Benny said while pulling off his red clown's wig. It was itchy.
"It's not a story, Benny. It's a map of our neighborhoods,"
Isabella said. She was probably the kindest person Theodore had ever met, and probably the cutest, too. But Theodore had never told anyone that before.
"It's not just a map of our neighborhoods,"
Theodore said. He flicked his flashlight on and focused on one of the houses.
"It's a treasure map. You see this yellow mark?
Both his friends nodded.
That means they give out high-quality, yet small snacks, like Skittles or Starbursts."
All right,
Benny said. Theodore focused his light on another house.
"These red lines mean they give out fruit. Not fruit snacks or fruit candy, but real fruit, like bananas and oranges." "Oh, that's not bad,"
Isabella said.
It's the worst.
Benny said.
It's Halloween. We want candy.
He yelled. All three kids laughed. Isabella shrugged.
"Yeah, but I like fruit too. But we're in it for the best stuff."
Theodore shined his light on a house underlined with silver.
"These houses give out full bars. Not generic milk chocolate bars. Brand name full bars."
Both Benny and Isabella nodded.
"We're here.
Theodore put his light on the illustration of the tree fort.
If we follow my path in yellow, we can hit all the full bars houses in an hour, giving us another 45 minutes of gathering anything we want."
Yeah,
Benny said. Isabella high-fived him.
"It's like following the yellow brick road,"
Isabella said. She always used references to The Wizard of Oz, her favorite movie. It was the reason Theodore used the yellow path. He smiled.
"I thought we could synchronize our watches."
Theodore lifted his wrist.
I don't have a watch.
Benny said.
"What? Really?
Benny nodded.
Bella?"
Theodore asked.
"Not tonight. Kinda clashes with the outfit."
She curtsied her black skirt. She was dressed as a witch. Black hat, black dress. But she didn't wear a fake nose or warts or anything. She was as pretty as ever. Theodore sighed.
"But we're supposed to meet back here after we split up."
We'll get here sooner or later.
Benny said.
Come on, let's go before all the good candy's gone.
Theodore sighed but smiled as he rolled up his map. The witch, the ninja, and the clown climbed out of the tree fort. The moon was full and so bright that the street lights were barely needed. It was a perfect night to be trick-or-treating. The friends followed the yellow path past more than a dozen houses and to the first house underlined by a silver streak. It worked like a charm. They were all given full bars. Theodore got a Baby Ruth, Isabel got a Snickers, and Benny got a Milky Way. The next house was the same thing. Not the same names, but full bars. And the next house was a dud. No one was home. Theodore pulled out his gray marker and crossed out the house. But the following 4 homes went just as planned, with a full bar at each. But then they hit the jackpot. The next homeowner gave them 3 bars each. It was better than Theodore could have planned. The friends were elated. Benny slapped Theo on the back and Isabella gave him a high five. Both reactions made him happy.
I'm gonna mark that house down for next year,
Theodore said. He pulled out his silver marker and circled the home 3 times, just as a cloud passed over the moon like a giant hand, blocking its light and coating everything in shadow.
Hey,
Benny said. He stopped in the middle of the road.
when'd that get here?
He pointed at a house that stood out against the dark. If the street lights had been working, their light would have blinded them to the house in the field. The single-story brick home looked normal, like the other homes in the neighborhood, except it was glowing green. There were hardly any Halloween decorations on the home, save for the closed eye about the size of a basketball that hung on the front door.
I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life, and I have never seen that place.
Benny said.
Really?
Theodore said. He checked his map. He took pride in being as detailed as possible, and was a great artist, not just for his age. On his map, this whole block was just an empty field.
It's not here on my map either.
What?
Isabella said. She looked over Theodore's shoulder. Theodore didn't mind. She smelled like fruit punch juicy juice. Benny just stared at the house. The whole thing made Theodore feel strange.
Well, we have a schedule to keep,
He said as nonchalantly as he could. He and Isabella continued on their way.
Wait, I want to go to that house.
Benny crossed the street towards the brick home. Isabella shrugged.
Why not? We just got 3 bars from the last house. We're ahead.
She crossed the street too. Theodore paused a moment longer, then followed. A smell came from the house, a sweet smell, like a donut shop just as it opens before sunrise. Theodore was still cautious, and even Isabella slowed to take in the home, but Benny marched up the stairs and knocked on the door. He couldn't tell for sure, but Theodore could have sworn the eye decoration opened just a crack, and the eyeball rolled round underneath. By the time Isabella and Theodore got to their friend, the door had flung open. The green light grew stronger, as did the sweet smell, but the woman who stepped out of the door was repulsive. She wore an old stitched dress, a pointed top hat, and a patch over her left eye. She had a long, pointed nose with a wart on the tip. Theodore couldn't tell if it was real or fake. There was another wart on her chin, with 4 long, protruding hairs. Her skin was greasy, and little green pimples dotted her cheeks. She looked over the kids with her one eye.
There are 1, 2, 3 of you?
No one said anything. The woman continued.
I could use...
She cut off and pulled at the patch on her eye.
I like your outfit, clown.
She said to Benny.
But your outfit is best, girl.
Isabella smiled kindly, but it didn't look natural to Theodore.
Give me cackle, girl.
Isabella looked blankly.
Cackle. You're which? Which is cackle? Give me one.
Theodore and Isabella shared a look. Benny didn't take his eyes off the woman. Isabella took a breath and laughed.
No. Like this.
The old woman took a deep breath, and what came out of her mouth could only be described as the coldest cackle ever. She laughed at the dark sky. Theodore's blood ran cold. Isabella must have felt the same way because she grabbed his hand. The woman finished and looked over the kids again.
Well, what you want?
Trick or treat?
Benny said. Theodore shushed him.
Oh, I have no candy for little kids on All Hallows Eve.
That's all right,
Theodore said. He was all too happy to go. Isabella was ready to go too. She turned with Theo.
But I have sweet drink and other goodies inside.
She stepped in front of Benny. It happened in just a moment, so fast that Theodore almost missed it. But the woman reached up to a patch and lifted it. The eye beneath flashed yellow. She stepped aside and motioned for the kids to enter. Benny, without hesitation, stepped forward. But Theodore's words stopped him.
No, thank you. We have a schedule to keep.
The woman ground her teeth, but said nothing. Her hand hovered over Benny's back, almost as if she was going to push him through the doorway.
Benny, come on.
Theodore said. Benny turned, and something passed over his face, like he was relieved.
Come on.
Isabella said, almost like coaxing a puppy. Benny nodded and stepped off the porch.
Are you sure?
The lady asked.
My drinks and sweets are quite good.
Benny didn't turn around or answer. He walked past his two friends in the direction they were heading before they had seen this creepy, green, glowing home in the middle of a field. Isabella and Theodore followed.
You return whenever you wish,
the woman said, adding another cackle to follow them into the dark. None of the friends spoke until they were 3 blocks away.
That was weird, right?
Isabella said. Theodore nodded.
It was creepy. More than usual. I mean, I know it's Halloween, but...
Theodore shivered. Benny didn't say anything.
Right, Benny?
Theodore asked.
Yeah, sure.
Benny said. He smiled, but it wasn't his usual smile.
I think you should add that house to the map.
Isabella said.
Cross it out, so we never go back again.
Theodore and Isabella laughed, and Benny did too. But it wasn't his usual laughter.
What house is next?
Benny asked, almost as if he was tired of trick-or-treating. Theodore reviewed his map and led them on. The following 5 houses were all full bars, but the excitement was different, especially with Benny. As they continued on, the old lady and her strange house drifted from the kids' minds, and the excitement returned, and so did the friends' laughter. The houses became more frequent, and more kids filled the sidewalks.
All right.
Theodore said, looking at his map.
After this next block, we're going to split up.
Right, Isabella and Benny said.
But I still don't understand why we're going to split up.
Isabella said.
It gives us the best chance to find all the best candy for tonight's big trade.
Theodore said. The 3 friends would go off alone and meet back at the tree fort, empty their bags, trade off, and eat their fill. It was the whole purpose of the map and Halloween itself.
I know. But trick-or-treating is never as fun being away from you two.
Isabella said.
But it's what we do every year. We shouldn't change it.
Benny said. Before they could argue further, their friends, Malachi and Olivia, ran up to them.
Good night so far?
Malachi asked. He was dressed as a pirate. Tattered clothes, long, messy hair, and a big hat. He had a plastic sword at his side.
Yeah, how about you?
Theodore asked.
Yeah, best year yet.
We heard a house on 5th Street is giving out full bars.
Olivia said. She was dressed as a blue dog, her favorite cartoon character. Theodore smiled.
We can confirm they are. We've been there already.
Man, you've got to invite us to your room.
Malachi said.
Hey, where's Jordan?
Isabella said. Olivia shrugged.
We split up and met back up after every block, and a little while back, he just stopped showing up.
Olivia saw the alarm in the 3 friends and added,
Oh, don't worry. He does this every year. He'll come to my house later for our big trade.
Theodore smiled. Almost every kid had a candy trade-off at the end of Halloween, but none of them were as good as his and his friends.
Come on, Olivia. Let's get some of those full bars.
Malachi said. As they ran off in the opposite direction, Theodore wanted to warn them about that new house. But instead, he walked on with his friends until they separated at the fork in the road. The rest of the night was about filling the bags. Theodore didn't stop to talk to anyone. He ran ahead to get more treats. Most of them were handfuls of candy, but he did find a house that handed out small toys, another that handed out full bars, and another that handed out fruit. He pulled out his map.
Who gives out oranges and lemons on Halloween?
He said, marking the map with drawings of the fruit. He finished the houses in the long street and ran to his tree fort. He waited a short time before Isabella showed up. They talked about some things they had gotten, including the fruit.
If you don't want oranges or lemons, I'll take them.
Isabella said. Typically, they waited for Benny to return before the trading began, but since they knew he would hate the fruit, the trade went through. Isabella shoved the oranges into a treat bag.
And the lemons?
She asked.
No way.
Theodore said.
My mom makes a killer lemonade.
He tucked the lemons safely into his bag. They talked about some decorations and costumes they had seen, but soon became worried. Where was Benny? He was never this late.
Do you think he went home?
Isabella asked.
No way. The highlight of his year, after Christmas, is the trade.
Do you think he's all right?
Theodore waited to answer.
I hope so.
All he could think about was that green, glowing house. Benny had almost gone in. Theodore picked up his bag and started down the ladder.
Wait, where are you going?
I'm going to find him.
Isabella grabbed her bag too and followed along.
You don't think he went back to that house, do you?
Theodore was not surprised when she asked. It felt obvious Benny would be there. Theodore nodded. When they jumped down from the ladder, they didn't run, but they weren't walking either. Neither of them wanted to get to that strange house, but it was what needed to be done.
What's the plan?
Isabella asked.
I don't know. Get there, find Benny, bring him back for the trade-off.
This satisfied Isabella. The two friends continued quietly in their half-run, half-walk. Even though he had mentioned the trade-off, Theodore knew there would be no trades by the end of the night. The streets were still full of kids, but in the midst were parents too. Some were calling out for their children. Some sounded concerned. The names of his friends, Jordan, Olivia, Eve, and Malachi, were mixed in with the others. Not a good sign. Theodore picked up the pace, and Isabella followed.
There it is,
Isabella said, while they were still far away. The house's green glow seemed to double, and it looked bigger somehow.
What should we do?
Isabella said. Theodore bent down to pick something up out of the grass.
I think we're in bigger trouble than we thought.
He held out the red clown's wig and a plastic pirate sword.
Every kid in this town, all of our friends are in danger.
As the two stared at the costume items, a child dressed as a cowboy with a cowhide pattern on his chaps knocked on the door. Before the woman answered, Isabella pulled Theodore behind a pine tree. The woman with the pointed hat and eye patch walked out.
What you want?
She said in her rough accent.
Trick or treat?
The boy said. He couldn't be more than 7 years old.
Trick or treat, eh?
The woman glanced around and then lifted her eye patch. Neither of the kids could see what was under the eye patch from this far away, but they saw the yellow flash.
Come in, won't you?
The woman said.
Throw away your bag.
No.
Isabella whispered. But the little boy tossed his bag and walked into the house without saying another word. By the time the door was slammed shut, Theodore had a plan.
All right, I'm going into that house. You run back and get some help.
Are you kidding? I'm not leaving you with that witch.
Come on, we'll need some help, and I need to get in there now. There's no telling what happened to Benny.
And what will I tell them? Oh, there's a lady with an eye patch that is kidnapping kids with her yellow eye.
I don't know. Yeah?
No one will believe me. I'm coming with you. She'll get you too if you go alone.
Theodore pinched his lips, then said,
Fine, but if I tell you to run, you run.
Isabella gave a curt nod.
Let's go,
Theodore said. On their way up to the door, the two decided to try to sneak inside. Surely the woman must be distracted by the boy who had just gone in. Theodore walked close. The doorway had a golden knocker. Right above it was that giant eye.
I hear something.
Theodore said.
What is it?
I don't know. It's all muffled.
He leaned against the door.
Can you hear me?
Said the voice.
What? Yes!
Theodore said.
What's happening inside?
That woman, is a witch.
The voice said.
What?
Theodore said.
Who are you?
It's Eve from school.
Eve? Your friends, and I think your parents are looking for you. Are you trapped in there?
The voice said something about the door, but it didn't make any sense.
Did you say you're on the other side of the door?
No,
The voice said.
I am the door.
Theodore took a step back.
What'd Eve say?
Isabel said.
She said
Theodore shook his head.
She said she is the door.
I am.
Eve said in a loud whisper.
I know it's Halloween, but this isn't funny. People are scared, and you're trapped in there.
Isabella said.
No,
Eve broke off.
I need to be quiet or she'll come out. I'm not lying. She's turning kids into part of this house. And then, when she needs a snack, she takes a wall down and...
The voice broke off again.
It's not true. You're just standing on the other side of that door.
Isabella said.
I'll prove it.
The eye of the door popped open and focused on Theodore and Isabella. Both of them flinched. The door itself popped open. No one stood in the entryway. Theodore hesitated.
What should we do?
Isabella asked.
Please help,
The voice from the door said. Theodore inspected the door.
It can't be true.
It is.
The door, Eve, said.
You need to come in fast. She's distracted.
Isabella stepped forward and checked the door too.
Can it be true?
If it is, we can't let this happen to Benny.
Theodore said. He rubbed his temples.
We've got to make a decision. Are we in or out?
Isabella didn't hesitate.
In.
Theodore nodded.
Okay, think. What do witches hate? Cats.
Isabella said.
I think that's mummies. I am so not good at this.
Theodore said, wishing he was in his tree fort, marking his map and trading candy.
Me either.
Isabella said.
Eve, do you know?
No,
Eve said.
but she's making the kids throw their candy bag away.
Maybe she's diabetic? My dad is, and he doesn't like having candy near him.
Isabella said.
No, I think it's something more.
Eve said.
But you two have to go now or she'll know you're in the house.
Theodore and Isabella threw their candy sacks over their shoulders. Theodore pulled his ninja mask over his mouth, and the two walked into the house, quietly. The smell of cake and candy was even stronger inside the house. Theodore felt sick and wasn't sure if he'd ever want to eat candy again. The hallway was narrow and dark. The walls pulsed a sickening green glow, just like the outside. A song played on a harpsichord, an ancient instrument. Theodore hated it.
You think the walls are really...
Isabel began, but then the walls started whispering.
Run!
They said.
Get out while you can!
Said another.
No, help us!
Isabella grabbed Theodore's hand.
I'm scared.
Me too,
He said.
but we gotta find Benny.
Isabella's squeeze relaxed a little, and she nodded.
She's in the kitchen.
The walls said. The two crept forward. The music grew louder the closer they got to the kitchen, as did a voice. It was the old woman repeating the same sentence over and over again. There was no door at the entrance to the kitchen. Theodore peeked round the corner. The witch was putting a door up in the back of the house. The coloring was a cow pattern, the same as the boy dressed as a cowboy she'd just taken into the back.
I think she turned that boy into a door.
Theodore whispered. Isabella looked, but tripped into the open doorway.
No!
Theodore said, but it was too late.
Why come you in my house, dearie?
The witch's voice was soft, but there was anger behind the words. Isabella stood like a statue.
Your front door was open.
She said flatly.
Was it?
The witch said.
I will have to deal with her later.
Theodore swallowed hard. His knees shook.
Now, what to do with you?
The witch said. Isabella took a deep breath. Theodore wanted to do something, anything, but he couldn't move. Before the witch spoke again, Isabella opened her candy bag so fast it ripped. She pulled out a handful of candy and threw it at the witch. The witch cackled.
Oh, you clever girl. But you can't hurt me with candy. I think I'll keep you. As a pet.
Isabella pulled out another handful from her bag, candy bars and an orange. But before she could throw them, the witch screamed.
No!
Theodore watched in horror as the kitchen flashed yellow, and Isabella froze in place, the orange still in her hand. There was no time to do anything. The witch waddled over to the opening and pushed the orange from her hand with a broomstick. She rambled off something angrily in another language when the orange bounced on the floor, her rant ending with a spit in the area of the round fruit. Theodore sunk deeper into his shadow while the witch chanted, the ninja suit helping him to disappear into the darkness. Isabella began shaking, and the witch chanted louder. Right before Theodore's eyes, Isabella shrank. Whiskers popped from her cheeks. The witch chanted more, and black fur sprouted all over her body, waving like tall grass in the wind. Isabella was a cat.
Oh, look how cute you are,
the witch told Isabella the cat. She scooped her up into her arms and stroked her back. Theodore ducked behind a small cabinet, wondering if this was a friend, maybe Malachi, maybe Jordan. Isabella hissed and took a swipe at the witch.
Now, listen to what I say. You behave, and we have good time together. You don't, and...
The witch squeezed her hand into a fist. Even though he was in complete darkness and behind a cabinet, Theodore felt exposed. He held his breath and didn't blink. The witch walked over to the orange on the ground.
Did Dor tell you about the fruit?
She petted Isabella harder and kicked the orange away.
I replaced the girl Dor soon. My secrets can't be given away that easy.
Theodore quietly pulled his bag open and felt around inside. His fingers ran over slick candy wrappers and then a porous, round peel. A lemon! He gripped it tight. The walls were yelling.
Use the fruit!
The witch spun around, a real fear in her eyes. Isabella saw him first and meowed. Theodore pulled the lemon from the bag and ran at the witch, screaming. When she first saw him, her hand flew to her eye patch and flipped it around. The eye beneath did not look human. It was wide and bright yellow like an eagle's eye. Theodore knew that if it flashed, he'd be turned into a coffee table, or worse, a gerbil. He threw his hand up and squeezed the lemon, hoping it would work. At the very least, it would hurt. He had gotten lemon in his eye once, and golly, that was a pain. The yellow juice squirted clear out of the lemon and splashed that weird eye with perfect accuracy. The witch let out a scream and dropped Isabella. She held both hands over her eyes and bounced round the house, screaming in another language. The green light flickered. The music cut out, then returned. A powerful wind rushed through the house. The walls shook and teetered. Deafening cracks like thunder rang out. Flashes of lightning struck the house and the field around it. Isabella jumped onto Theodore's shoulder, and he could have sworn she said to run. And he did, straight out of the house, onto the sidewalk, just as the walls of the home tumbled and smashed to the ground. A thick fog engulfed the field. Theodore turned to say something to his friend, but Isabella wasn't with him. He called for her just as the felled house erupted in a bright yellow light. Through the wind, Theodore could still hear the witch screaming. The light and wind died away, and the whole block went black. Street lights flickered on. Now that light spilled round Theodore, the foggy field became even darker. He held his breath and listened for footsteps, breathing, a cackle, anything. But there was nothing.
Hello?
Theodore said. His echoes were the only reply. His heart fell, and he felt tears prick his eyes. His friends were gone. His breath caught when he saw something moving slowly in the field. It was a werewolf? No, it was a kid. Now more costumed kids started appearing out of the dark. They cut through the mist, stumbling toward him from where the house had been just moments ago, and among them were Malachi, Eva, Jordan, Benny, and Isabella. The witch was nowhere to be seen. She had disappeared along with the house. All the kids were groggy and confused, asking each other what had happened. Seeing all these kids in costume was a funny sight, walking like zombies, even though surprisingly there were no zombie costumes. Theodore ran to his friends.
Theo, what happened?
Benny asked when they got to each other.
You don't remember? The witch! The magic?
What are you talking about?
Benny said, rubbing his head. Theodore found Eva and asked her.
Do you remember? Do you remember the door? Your eye! It was huge!
She shook her head.
Why are we in a field?
Theodore ran to some others to ask if they remembered. None of them did. The witch's spell had affected them all. Finally, he spotted Isabella.
Do you remember? Please, I might go crazy if I'm the only one.
Theodore asked her.
I don't think I'll ever forget,
She said. A huge smile spread across her face, but some tears were in her eyes. Theodore didn't like hugging people, but Isabella wasn't people. She was a friend, and she remembered. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. She leaned into the hug and relaxed.
Should we
Tell anyone?
Isabella asked.
Who would believe us?
Theodore said.
The kids who were transformed by the witch don't even believe us.
I remember Green.
Benny said. He was at their side, still holding his head. Isabella and Theodore pushed away from each other and stepped closer to Benny.
Yeah?
They both said.
Green candy.
Benny said.
But not the good green candy.
Both Theodore and Isabella slumped.
And green apples. I'll never understand why people give fruit out on Halloween.
Benny stuck out his tongue.
I will never complain about fruit on Halloween again.
Theodore said.
Me either.
Isabella said.
It saved all of us.
You guys are weird.
Benny said. He shook his head like he was shaking the fog from his brain.
Hey, it's late. Let's go trade. Wait, where's my bag?
Isabella and Theodore laughed. Theodore, the only one left with a bag, said.
I'll share mine with both of you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really hope that you enjoyed that story. And if you did, I hope that you subscribed, liked, shared, and commented. The Imaginaries Podcast Literary Channel is all about stories. So we write stories, we share stories, we talk about how we write stories. If you're looking for more of that kind of stuff, we have a discussion video here, but it won't be here if this is the day that the story has been released. So if you're here after that, then the discussion video will be popping up right here in a couple of days. Check it out and see how I came up with the story and how long it took me to write and some other fun little facts about it. Thanks.